Welcome to Electrified. It's your host, Dylan Loomis. All right, so it's time. Let's quickly talk about the elephant in the room by popular request, Elon and his political antics and the impact on Tesla. No worries, this will be brief and you can skip ahead if you want, but it's important for me to touch on it. To be clear, I have said over the past few months and even longer that Elon's political endeavors will definitely have a negative impact on Tesla's sales and the overall brand image in certain regions and to a certain degree. It's just, in my view, it's nowhere near a scale that will, quote, destroy Tesla's brand or even really limit the upside of Tesla stock over the next 5 to 10 years. But yes, right now, Elon is clearly alienating a certain percentage of Tesla fans and preventing some people from buying a Tesla. I just don't want anyone to think I ignore this or gloss over it and bury my head in the sand. It's just humans have a tendency to listen to the loudest or most pervasive sentiment. And right now, this anti-Elon group is quite loud and it's being amplified by media outlets around the world. But there is a reason why I don't dwell on this regularly. I have extreme conviction that in 2026 or 2027, Elon will still be commenting on politics publicly, just like he is today. And yet, Tesla stock is going to start ripping people's faces off at some point in that window. So I understand people needing somewhere to point the finger right now, and if you don't have the same political views as Elon, of course you're going to be upset. The man is a force of nature for the other team. So I get it, I really do understand your frustration. But I've been around Tesla in the markets long enough to know that revolutionary technology and making money trumps any political noise. So when Tesla starts having its EPS expectations raised because it starts actually making more money again, and when the world can start to use Tesla robotaxis and see Optimus in production, Tesla stock will have its time in the sun, and it will not matter what Elon is saying politically if that happens. As always, the macro picture has to cooperate, but if Tesla executes on the roadmap that we have currently, Tesla getting to a $2 trillion, $5 trillion market cap and beyond is inevitable. And yeah, not financial advice, but to me, the way I see it, it really is just a matter of time. Is Elon's political foray delaying that outcome a bit? Sure, I'd say that's fair. If he wasn't involved at all and just focused on Tesla and SpaceX primarily, Tesla sales would probably be a bit higher, and the stock would likely be higher too. But to think removing Elon as CEO is the answer will always be absurd to me, because that's basically asking for calmer waters now, but gutting the upside of Tesla over the next 10 years plus. If Elon were to be removed, you would lose that $20 trillion plus upside that Tesla has with Elon. I think FSD and robotaxis are far enough along and would carry on without him, but the Optimus opportunity is not and still needs Elon's driving force to see it through to mass commercial scale. And that's what will eventually be the majority of Tesla's market cap. So to wrap, I know it's not ideal for those with opposing political views as Elon, but I'd encourage you to put those differences aside and just trust in the technology. The progress you see with FSD, the progress and rate of innovation you see with Optimus, how Tesla sells the best, safest car in the world and it just got a lot better, how Tesla Energy is progressing and growing and has a massive addressable market. I could go on, but you get it. The time when Tesla stock goes parabolic is looming sometime in the next few years. And there is nothing that Elon can say politically to stop that, as long as the Tesla team continues to execute, which we have every reason to believe they're going to do. I saw Sawyer point this out first. The US government is planning to give Tesla a $400 million contract to buy armored Tesla vehicles. Just to confirm, if you go to the Department of State website and look up the procurement forecast, scroll down a bit and you'll find the forecast for 2025 that was actually last revised December 23rd of last year. So let me make it clear, this is not some friendly deal between Elon and Trump. This contract for Tesla was decided on well before Trump's inauguration. Then if you pull up the source document, you can see on line 22, it says Armored Tesla Production Units. This will be a 5-year contract, and the contract value is $400 million. And the Tesla contract was last modified December 13th last year. If you divide that $400 million contract by, let's just call it an ASP of 55,000, that would be just over 7,000 vehicles. However, the actual number could be less because I'm sure part of this contract is going toward upfitting or actually making these Tesla vehicles armored. But as we know, the reason this is awesome and such a breath of fresh air is because we know Tesla makes the most American-made vehicles here in America. Not only that, but they're safe, they're fun to drive, the maintenance is low, so it's really about time something like this is happening. And just to get out ahead of it, because I know it's going to happen, outlets and people are going to say, oh look, Tesla's getting special treatment from Trump, but as we just pointed out with the date of this contract, that is not the case. This deal was put in place while Biden was still president. And while a few thousand vehicles for Tesla isn't going to move the needle, this obviously is more about the exposure of government employees driving these vehicles, getting to use the vehicles, and the marketing and the press that will come alongside all of that. We're likely to hear a lot more about this in the days and weeks ahead when it comes to specifics and vehicle types and who will be driving these vehicles, but for now, it's very encouraging to see. I promise I'm not trying to play with your emotions here, but prepare for frustration. We have a group of Senate Republicans proposing a $1,000 tax on new EV purchases to account for the cost of federal road repairs. They said most revenue for federally funded road repairs is collected through taxes on diesel and gas, which of course EVs don't pay. However, this $1,000 fee paid up front when you buy an EV would be roughly equivalent to what drivers of ICE vehicles pay in federal gas taxes over 10 years for highway funds. So let's just stop right there. Apparently, the time value of money means absolutely nothing to these people. Paying $1,000 up front and paying $100 every year for 10 years is not at all the same thing, especially for folks that are on tighter budgets. Then they say EVs can weigh up to 3 times as much as gas-powered cars, creating more wear and tear on roads and bridges. To that point, I would say we just need to talk to GM because it's really the Hummer and the Silverado and the Sierra EV and their Cadillac Escalade that all weigh well over 8,000 pounds. But as we've documented over the past year, these vehicles are not selling in volume. And just because there are a handful of EVs that are excessively heavy doesn't mean all of the other EVs that are not and are more in line with the weight of ICE vehicles should also be punished in the same way, if your concern really is the wear and tear from those heavier vehicles. So listen, I'm not trying to argue that EVs shouldn't pay anything toward these road repairs. I just think a $1,000 tax up front on all EVs as a blanket tax is absurd. I also wanted to touch on BYD's partnership with DeepSeek when it comes to co-developing autonomous technology. Yesterday, we talked about their God's Eye system across its lineup, and now all of those systems do use BYD's Swan-G architecture to power its self-driving tech. And it's the Swan-G setup that'll be connected to DeepSeek's R1 AI model to improve the vehicle's AI capabilities as well as those in the cloud. There really isn't a lot out there about how this collaboration will work, but DeepSeek is supposed to improve the performance and the personalization of BYD's self-driving. It'll enable more advanced voice command systems, and the R1 model will be used to interpret the environment, detect and classify different objects in different weather or lighting conditions. It's also supposed to help support the decision-making, predicting possible maneuvers in different circumstances. BYD's Swan-G architecture has 4 pillars. There's a central processor like Tesla's Hardware 4. There's cloud-based AI, a vehicle-side AI, and then it has the sensor network. And then all 4 of those components are going to be linked to DeepSeek's R1 model. In Hong Kong trading, BYD shares hit a record high, jumping almost 5% on the news. And of course, it's splashy timing with what DeepSeek has done over the past few weeks. However, as we've been talking about for years, there's a big difference between real-world AI and LLMs. So we'll see how much practical value DeepSeek can add to what BYD is doing, but it's going to take time. meaning the next few months, if not year or two, to figure out what this can really do for BYD's God's Eye systems. And listen, obviously I'm a Tesla investor, but I'm also a human, which means I do really want autonomy to be widespread as fast as possible. It's not hard to see how a world that was only autonomous vehicles would be so much safer than a world where humans are still driving. And BYD's vehicles won't be coming to America anytime soon, no matter how great their autonomy gets, so that market is still wide open for Tesla. But as someone rooting for autonomy that loves competition, I actually really enjoy seeing the moves that BYD is making. But for me, with the limited info we have, I just can't tell how far along BYD really is. Speaking of China, you may remember that woman that was protesting against Tesla, saying that the brakes malfunctioned that led to an accident when she was in a vehicle with her parents. Her family did survive that crash, but there was a lot happening in court over the past few years, and ultimately she was ordered to pay $23,000 in damages to Tesla, and she had to publicly apologize. And now some articles today are saying that Tesla has sued at least 6 car owners in China who claim to have sudden vehicle malfunctions or quality complaints. The AP is also reporting that Tesla has sued at least 6 bloggers and 2 Chinese media outlets that wrote critically about the company. Of those 14 cases, Tesla won 11 of them. There were 2 judgments, and then 1 case was settled out of court. But egregiously, the AP is now trying to make it seem like Tesla is suing a bunch of customers and media outlets just so nobody speaks out against Tesla. From the AP's perspective, it's to limit Tesla's accountability, when in reality, we've watched these cases the past few years, and Tesla has been absolved of any wrongdoing. It has been driver error. They literally say it later in the article. Traffic police determined the crash was her dad's fault because he did not maintain a safe following distance. And Tesla did release the data from the car that showed the father was driving 75 miles per hour and the brakes did function to reduce the magnitude of the collision. I'd also point out that an executive from Tesla actually said that this girl was not acting on her own and she was doing it because she wanted a bigger payday. And that's not for me, that's from a Tesla exec. I'm sharing because I was so frustrated reading this and seeing all of the headlines. The AP was trying to paint Tesla as this company that has super status in China that's putting consumers in a vulnerable position, when again, nearly all of these cases were decided in Tesla's favor. So last time I checked, it shouldn't be illegal for Tesla to stand up for itself by fighting some of these defamatory comments that ended up going viral in China and damaging Tesla's brand. In the event somebody now says to you, oh, aren't you worried that Tesla's going to sue you if you say anything negative about the company? You'll understand where that's coming from and know how to counter it. We have a new Wall Street firm, the Benchmark Company, which no, is not the same thing as Benchmark Mineral Intelligence. This is a totally separate entity. Analyst Mickey Legg, actual name Michael, has initiated coverage of Tesla with a buy rating and a $475 price target. There's absolutely nothing that we don't already know in his note, talked about the more affordable vehicle, unsupervised, Optimus, and then said Tesla's market leadership, near-term catalysts, strong management, and diversified business justify the stock's market premium. He has just over 4 stars on TipRanks and is in the top 15% of Wall Street analysts from this website. I'm sure you've seen Elon's investor group that's made a bid on OpenAI for nearly $100 billion. 400 different sources are reporting on the news, as this definitely has huge implications for shaping the next decade in AI. 80% of those sources reporting are labeled with high factuality, but only 12% of the sources are independent news agencies. And this time around, the headlines from the sources that lean left politically are actually somewhat comparable to those on the right, but I can assure you this is not always the case. I can see all of this data about this breaking news story thanks to Ground News, the sponsor of this video. Ground News is a website and an app developed by a former NASA engineer to highlight the bias distribution and political affiliation of each media source based on ratings from 3 independent news monitoring organizations. It does not use any algorithms that really are just built to optimize user attention by any means. Instead, Ground Ground News focuses on cutting through the noise and just presenting the data and the facts by highlighting any bias. With things happening so quickly in AI land, Ground News has become even more valuable to keep me up to date without wasting time on fluff pieces. And the custom My News bias shows me my reading history over different time frames. Pair that with the blind spot feature that shows stories that have little reporting from the left and others from the right. And in my opinion, it's a great way to develop nuanced takes on the latest breaking news. So if you'd like to support the channel, you can use my link ground.news/electrified linked below to get 40% off the Vantage plan for unlimited access, which is what I use. Peter Rawlinson gave an exclusive interview to Inside EVs, and he said that the future of EVs is 180-mile range vehicles. He said, "That's the future, definitely. I wouldn't say that midsize would be limited to that, but I could see a variant of midsize that's just got that 10 years from now." I would just say, obviously, midsize vehicles won't be limited to 180 miles because many Americans still want the extra range, even if they don't use it. It's just built into the culture. And yes, there will absolutely be a group of people that love efficiency and want to save the money on these cheaper battery packs, and they really don't take road trips. Even somebody like myself that takes a long road trip or a weekend trip maybe a handful of times every year, I still want the extra range, even though 98% of the time I don't need it. Peter said by 2030, he believes buyers will accept a range of 200 miles for a family car. Of course, the benefit of this, a 180-mile Lucid would only need a 30 kilowatt hour pack. Given that LFP packs have already dropped to about $60 per kilowatt hour, he said we can make a battery pack for about $2,500, maybe $2,000, instead of the $20,000 or $25,000 today. He also said, "My view is there is a myopia or a short-term focus on DC fast charging, but the narrative should be about AC charging, overnight charging." To that point, I tend to agree. I wish there were more AC chargers at restaurants and grocery stores and shopping centers, so when people park and are going to spend a few hours in a location, they can plug in and maybe come back to their car with an extra 50 miles of range. Overall, I would say yes, there is going to be a market for 180-mile EVs, but it's not going to be the future on a mass market scale, at least in America, in my opinion. Tesla Experience Mexico shared a nice clip of the Cybertruck on FSD.
Que creo que han tenido un accidente. Ok, ahí están detenidos y la Cybertruck los está rodeando, pero como una campeona.
And I've never been to Mexico personally, but I have some friends there and I've watched some videos, and I think the traffic patterns are pretty different than those in the US, so maybe this enhances Tesla's capabilities with FSD just having more data from the Mexican market. Honestly though, that's pure speculation from me, and it only comes from looking up every FSD Mexico video that I can find. Gregor Truck got some updated images on the Tesla diner nearing completion, and to that I would say it's about time. They started construction on this location September of 2023. But as we've covered over the past year, the permitting is quite the challenge in this area. And I did not see any updated pictures of the ancillary lot with the extra superchargers that seem to be behind the main lot where the building is. Maybe there's a slim chance of an opening in Q1, but now it's looking like Q2. Here we have a rumor from the Tesla Alpha and Omega account that has been getting some things right about Tesla the past few weeks. They're saying the new Model Y is going to get a government subsidy of 20,000 yuan, which as of today is about $2,800. I'll certainly keep an eye on this one to see if it becomes official. Joe Tetmeyer pointed out there are some new Model Ys in the parking lot at Giga Texas set for delivery as soon as next week.
It looks like they're starting to build up the inventory over at that outbound lot so they can begin to start shipping them out for deliveries.
Joe also pointed out a camouflaged Model Y at Giga Texas. So yeah, I think we're all guessing the same thing. Maybe this is the new Model Y Performance. It does look like there might be a spoiler under this camouflage on the back. And of course, they would not have the performance wheels on this vehicle so as to not give it away. If you go to Tesla's inventory page and select Cybertruck, you'll see some 2024 model year vehicles are now seeing price reductions of thousands of dollars, some as high as $6,000 depending on your region. And it's the Foundation series that's marked up to $6,000 off. However, this discount is only for 2024 Cybertrucks, and remember, that variant does not qualify for the tax credit like the 2025 version does. So this is clearly just Tesla doing what it needs to liquidate the older 2024 inventory. Tesla is also discounting the Foundation series Cybertruck in Canada by about 5%, which works out to around $7,000. And yes, with the Foundation series, if you take delivery by March 31st, you still get that free wrap, which is worth about $7,000. And as we mentioned yesterday with that proposal, fast forward to today and the Toronto City Council has approved it. So effective March 1st, new Tesla vehicles will no longer qualify for the licensing fee grant in Toronto. But I'm following up because it turns out this is a nothing burger, as 9 Tesla vehicles have qualified for this program so far. Tesla has started installing some anti-theft devices on supercharger cables. Called the Dye Defender, these are stainless steel hose barriers filled with pressurized blue staining dye that explodes when someone tries to cut the cable. Here's a picture of the cable itself, and it's too early, I haven't seen any videos of how malleable these cables are with this device. It does have the warning label, pressurized, do not cut. And here's the video demonstrating what happens if somebody does cut the cable. Nice. Responding to this news, Max from Tesla's Supercharger division said, "It's just a trial. We're always exploring options. Supercharger cables will also have property of Tesla engraved from our Buffalo, New York factory. So recycling companies should not accept them and they should notify Tesla. It's one thing to stop the criminals from getting money from cutting the cables, but of course you want to stop the cables being cut in the first place because then Tesla obviously has to repair those. And I'd imagine at least some recycling companies won't see the engraving, and if they did, maybe they don't care, they just recycle it anyway. Fortunately, Tesla should not need solutions like this everywhere, but there are certain cities where this seems to happen more frequently than others. CATL is looking to do an IPO in Hong Kong. They're expecting to raise at least $5 billion from this, but no timeline has been given. A portion of the funds will be used to expand the company's footprint in places like Europe for CATL's plant in Hungary, but CATL is also working on factories in Spain with Stellantis and in Indonesia. As of last year, CATL operated 13 battery factories around the world. Fun fact, CATL was the world's biggest electric battery supplier for the 8th straight year in 2024, holding 38% share of the global market. I'm sure many of you remember this 2-seat prototype robotaxi from Remots that they were calling Vern. Well, construction of the first production facility for these vehicles has now begun in Croatia. Vern vehicles for all markets will be produced in Croatia and exported around the world. Construction work is scheduled to be done by the end of this year, while the factory is scheduled to go into operation in 2026. The plan for Remots is to launch its robotaxi service as early as 2026, first in Zagreb and then in other European cities, starting with the UK and Germany, followed up by the Middle East. And Toyota's battery manufacturing facility in North Carolina is now ready to begin production and will start shipping batteries for North American EVs in April. This is a huge endeavor for Toyota with an investment cost of $14 billion. And President Trump has nominated an executive from Apple to run NHTSA. That individual, Jonathan Morrison. Looking at Jonathan's LinkedIn page, unfortunately tells us nothing about what he actually did at Apple. There is some speculation out there that he worked on Apple's autonomous car project, but I have not yet confirmed that. He did actually serve as chief counsel for NHTSA for 4 years from 2017 to 2021. So maybe Morrison worked on Project Titan, maybe he didn't, but either way, he is going to be overseeing those ongoing probes into Tesla and all the other matters related to auto safety regulations. And just to be clear, his nomination still needs to be reviewed and voted on. Tesla stock was actually set to have a pretty nice day until it sold off the last 30 minutes before the close, ending the day at $336.51, up 2.44%, while the Nasdaq was up 0.03%. It was another higher volume day for Tesla, trading 40% above the average. Don't forget, if you like to keep up with the breaking news, check out Ground News linked below. Take advantage of that 40% off, and thank you in advance if you do. Hope you have a wonderful day. Please like the video if you did. You can find me on X linked below, and a huge thank you to all of my Patreon supporters.